Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order at 6:02.
The landlord at the park couldn't find my check either.
Okay, first item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
We'll move.
What do you move, Jim?
I move to approve the minutes
There you go.
of August.
Do I have a second? Yes, we have two. Do you just want to do one at a time? You want to do them both at the same time?
You can do both, park tour and
Okay.
the August.
Debbie makes a motion to approve both.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Jim just said so moved.
Yes, so we got a second?
Yes, well,
I'll second.
okay. And Wayne is now here.
All right, he has to buy the donuts. Isn't it
We have a
donut
motion that's been made and seconded to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Appearance of interested citizen. Are you just here to observe, or are you an interested citizen? Okay,
Good.
that works.
Keep us in line.
But you don't want to talk to us, right? You just want to record us and turn us in for something, right? How my pen works. New old business, park reports. Well, vacant position, I don't think made the rounds.
Wait, have you skipped way down?
Well, we don't have any appearances of, so the new old business would be Meadows and Clear Lake, but it says vacant position.
Well, we got the park
You
stewards.
have to be on these two, though.
What?
Because there's a whole bunch more. You have
Park stewards.
caretakers.
Well,
And then vandal receipt right here.
well, I printed it out, but you might, okay.
She sent out two. Never print the first one.
Give me yours.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to note, we did have somebody come in a little bit late, so I don't know if they want to speak or not.
Do you want,
My tardiness, I wasn't sure where this was. I'm Keizer. I'm a member of the board member, Greater Gupser.
do you want to talk to us? You need to come up to the chair.
Okay. It's okay. I don't wish to speak or make a statement. I just wanted to sit in. I'm a member of the Greater Gupser Neighborhood Association.
Did you want to talk to us? Just pull up a chair and sit there and talk to us.
He'd say he didn't.
No?
Actually, don't.
You just want to watch too?
Yeah, I just want to listen, but I wanted to identify myself.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes. Fajer. Yes.
Okay. So there's a committee on park stewards and caretakers.
Okay. Park steward, park caretakers. Did we have a subcommittee on that?
No, Mr. Chair, we kind of formed one, but not a lot followed up on that. Largely, that's my fault. It was one of those things I was asking for some additional information from a couple different people that had expressed some interest in, and they never followed up with me. So at this time, there's nothing additional to report on that.
All right,
Scratch.
so I guess we'll try again next month, maybe.
One of the parties, I think, is no longer in the state for the winter. So, what's that? No, yeah.
She's back
Okay.
home in Indiana.
Vandal damage report from Mr. Johnson.
Are we referring to Keizer Rapids?
It just
Yes,
says vandal
And
damage report.
reinstatement of caretaker at Keizer Rapids.
Oh, impossible, okay.
Just kind of a quick update, if you will, of where we're at down at Keizer Rapids. Since the caretaker position is no more, we have noticed there hasn't been a lot of increase in homeless camps as far as numbers go. One thing that we're not doing as good a job on is finding those homeless camps in a timely manner. So we're not down office hours. We do still do pretty thorough park inspections, and we also try to talk to those who are down walking their dogs in those areas that are kind of off the beating trail, if you will, and we try to do a better job communicating with them, and oftentimes they will hint us to an area that they think they've maybe seen a homeless camp. So we're able to find them. We're probably just not finding them as fast as when we had a parks caretaker who was kind of on top of that. So that's one slight downfall to not having one down there. I'd say the other thing we noticed this summer was just keeping up with the sheer amount of garbage. So we do have a weekend seasonal temporary employee who's helping us out throughout the parks, and he goes down to Keizer Rapids and does rounds on the weekends. But you know, just one good-sized birthday party can come rolling in and hammer the big toy, and they leave 3 pizza boxes in a garbage can, and next thing you know, they're all overflowing, and it makes us look like we haven't been there in 10 days when actually it was empty 3 hours ago. So back when we had a caretaker, that was also something that was oftentimes taken care of on an as-seen basis, was just simply helping out with those garbage cans that look like they're overflowing. But you know, other than those couple items there, I'd say I think we've been able to do a real good job of keeping up with the routine maintenance in the park. You know, we have 2 additional employees now. We have some better equipment that we're using. Our mowers are really out there, able to keep the grass knocked down. We were a little concerned about mowing the dog park. Previous caretaker was able to do that kind of real early in the morning and late at night for us, and we've had to get in there and do it midday. We weren't sure how that was going to work, but actually everybody's been real courteous to work around the lawnmowers and understanding and try to do it midweek, kind of midday. We actually see a larger amount of people in there first thing in the morning, and then kind of an afternoon crowd, and we've kind of found like a time of day that works right to get in there and get it mowed. And we can get in there and get it mowed. We're in and out in about an hour with our new equipment, and previously it was taking a couple hours, so that's been real good. And then as far as keeping the large field mowed, we've been able to stay up on that. We've also had some volunteers helping us on the tractors. We have some guys that have volunteered to help maintain the disc golf course, and they've really stepped it up the last 2 years to help us with that. So those are avid players themselves that know the ins and outs of the course, and they communicate with me regularly, and so we've built a real good relationship there. So I mean, overall, I'm not noticing a huge difference, but there is a subtle one of the first 2 things that I mentioned to you guys. So questions for me?
Have we looked at any other resources for help, like cadets, police cadets, or fire cadets that could go down there?
The Keizer PD does do rounds on their bicycles in the summertime down there, so they are helping us in that fashion. I don't know exactly how often, but I do know that is part of their route. So amongst other areas of the city and other parks. So
And do we still have,
And the cadets help for all the concerts. They're there for everyone.
Jim?
Robert, my understanding was when the police department got their 5 new positions that they were going to try and at least make a drive-through there at night. Have you talked to the chief about that and see if that's possible?
I have not directly spoken to the chief regarding that, but I will say I have seen somewhat of a increase in police down there doing drive-throughs midday, but I have not spoken to him as far as whether or not they have begun doing that in the evenings yet.
Yeah, 'cause I think that would be helpful if they came, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, right about the whatever hour it is getting dark would
Right,
really be
they go
nice.
down and
Yeah, that's the most
take a
important
look.
hour of the day, really.
Yeah, that'd be a good job for Scott with his dog.
really would?
They come through that park quite a bit. I'm amazed.
Driving back in the back, that's where,
Yeah. But I see them there all the time. Go all the way down to the boat ramp, and I don't know where else they go, but they're there all the time.
Yes?
Part of the discussion on here, it looks like discussion about a possible reinstatement. Is that a thing?
Not on my end. I think that's something you guys had maybe mentioned at a previous meeting.
So what does that, what does that look like? Is that like,
Budgetary.
is that a budgetary thing or is that a voluntary thing? Like Clint's taking care of the amphitheater most of the time, or?
No, it was an agreement with the city manager that, once we got our new staff, he chose to end that need and that agreement. So now,
What was the cost of that position?
well, there was no,
None.
well, basically the park's caretaker was able to stay at the park for free.
Right.
In return of 20 hours service per week in the park. So now, instead of trading work for rent, they pay rent. So the bonus to us has been that we are now collecting rent on an additional home that the city owns, which goes directly into the parks fund. So we are able to use that for additional temp labor, amongst other things like maintenance of the home and stuff like that. So
But we're losing the continuity of service throughout the week that we've had,
Right.
yeah, you've lost your after hours service, if you will.
which to me at a regional park like that is probably, I mean, I would say arguably a little more important for, that's my position
It's
on
a
it.
valid point, you know? Like Jim's saying, you know, are the police down there in that key hour of the day? I don't know.
Well, and it's, even if they're not down at the key hour, I mean, I believe that position or that home is in a position to hear things throughout the night. I mean, you know, if people are down there dragon racing or drifting or whatever down at the
Yeah.
boat ramp, which they do all the time.
Yeah.
You know, the reporting is much faster. I mean, you have to be kind of in the perfect scenario for the cops to catch
Yeah,
them.
I'll say I've kept up a good open-ended relationship with the person renting that house, and the communication line is very good there. So if they have concerns, they're definitely letting me know about it in a very timely manner. If not, calling the police themselves if they feel that's necessary.
I don't know. Just makes sense to me. If we got someone on the property, I mean, utilize them to the full extent. I mean, it just seems like a good relationship there. But
I just wonder if part of the rental agreement could state that. That 20 hours of coverage.
Well, he wasn't
Right, but
paying
Could
rent.
change. Could change it back.
Matt, what do you suggest we do?
well, I mean, we've digressed a little bit on that park specifically, and with the volume of people. I mean, I spent a lot of time down there this summer with my kids riding bikes and stuff, and you know, at any given time, there were people smoking dope along the trails or hiding down by the disc golf and doing things they probably shouldn't be doing. Now, I understand that, you know, the caretaker can't see all those things, but they're generally not going to be looking for it if it's not part of what they're going to be doing in their day-to-day life. You know, I felt like it was a really good relationship. I'll tell you specifically, one of the comments that I was going to bring up later was a discussion about just how the repair of the dog park and how they've seen a really big decline in the last few months because people aren't out there taking care of their stuff. Well, if our caretaker's not out there helping work in the dog park, people are not taking care of their own dog's stuff. You know, I feel like if we're digressing, so I would really be interested in to see if we can have a conversation about reestablishing that.
Sorry.
You know,
Sorry.
I would say that we probably needed the funds more 2 years ago than we do now. I can't imagine they're bringing in, you know, tens of thousands of dollars and, you know, it's the make or break between a capital project or not. So I just feel like I would be very interested to see what it would look like to get that back. I think that's an important, critical part, and
Why
you
don't you
know,
make a motion on it?
Yeah, because you're an
Well-
advisory committee. If you
Yep.
wanted to
You know,
advise
there's another thought too, that now that we have the extra personnel, there really isn't as much for Shane to do. I mean, as far as the mowing and that stuff, maybe it could be 10 hours a week and making a pass through there at night and checking on things, doing that sort of thing, maybe, and cut his rent in half. Or work out something like that. Would he be amiable to that?
I have no idea.
Or
I
would
was
Chris?
never involved in, yeah, this is a
This is
I
the
know.
City manager.
city manager's agreement that I was not involved
We can
in.
make a
Yeah,
recommendation.
we can recommend.
I don't think that Chris would okay going back to where it was.
No.
But he might be able to say, well, we need a little bit more eyes and ears at night, you know, to go down and just make a run through, check, see if you can find somebody, that sort of thing. If, you know, if they know somebody's checking, then it's a deterrent. So I would make a motion that an agreement with the current renter, that his rent be cut in half and he spend 10 hours a week kind of patrolling in the evening and whatever, and eyes and ears. Because with the added staff, we don't need the maintenance necessarily that he used to do, right?
It's kind of a toss-up. You know, if that position came back, we would have less funds in our budget to hire additional temp labor. So, you know, there's a trade-off there.
Right.
So it's kind of like, how are you accomplishing the maintenance? But I don't think you guys are really talking about the maintenance here. You're talking about the after-hours
Right.
We're talking about
additional
security.
lookout for the park.
But I
If
think
you're
the
concerned.
point, though, is it's temp, right? So
Yeah, they're not here in the winter.
they're not here in the winter. I mean, personally, I'd be more inclined to kind of get it back to what it was before. And I can promise you 10 hours a week is probably not enough. Because if you do that entire park every night, every morning, you're talking a couple, 3 hours a day. So,
Depends on what they're doing. Are they inspecting the park, or are they
but
emptying every garbage can? You know?
right, right. I mean, you know, with the garbage cans, I think you're getting new cans and stuff, so it should
Yeah.
preventing a lot of the spilling and stuff. But I think rather than trying to put a fine point on it, I think we should ask the council to just give us the options that we can look at in terms of making a recommendation for moving forward with that particular piece. I mean, after all, the initial outset of this whole discussion was maintenance and operations. We've digressed a little bit in the maintenance and operations needs with Keizer Rapids because of the increased amount of staff and things like that. But I would say I think it's worth revisiting to see what it would take, A, to get the position back, and B, maybe look at what the cumulative cost of not having the position could be with not having the temps, because we're going to lose the temps for what, 7 months out of the year?
Well, yeah, 5 to 6, but we only have them working kind of like the later shift for about 3.5 months, basically summer months.
Right.
We have a temp on working like a later shift in the day.
Yes, Donna.
A question about the position. If we allow part of his rent to be payment, it's on. It's on.
Speaking to it.
If we allow part of his rent to cover him doing some security checking at the park, do we still then have to carry him under health and insurance
have
and all of
no
that kind of
He's
stuff?
already under that. He works for the city.
Oh, so it's a city employee that's
Yeah, he's
renting down there?
full-time.
So that wouldn't be a problem?
I think that's a HR decision. Frankly, I think we just need to have the conversation, A, if we can get
No,
this
I
back.
agree. I was just thinking in my head if that was another stumbling block.
I think, Mr. Chair, you got Clinton rolling.
I don't think people realize the traffic that goes on in Keizer Rapids Park. And I'm not talking about 9 and 10 o'clock when it's dark. I'm talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. You have no idea how much traffic's coming in and out of there. The other thing is, if you hire him, and I'm in favor of doing this, by the way, what will his duty be? Will he go down to the boat ramp? Will he go down over by the campfire site? Because he doesn't carry a gun, okay? And let me tell you, it's pretty dangerous in some of these areas with the people that are in there. So, you know, and he's a family man and everything, so there's a lot to think about. Even a cop sometimes doesn't want to drive down there. He will only go down to the boat ramp, you know, unless there's some kind of emergency. So there's a huge amount of traffic that goes on down there. It just blows my mind away.
Roland?
My question is to Robert. Who oversees the whole thing about the 10 hours volunteer or put so many hours? Is that something that you do?
No. Previously, that was an agreement with the city manager, so I had nothing to do with it.
But, so who oversees that?
The benefit from it, rent.
mean
Who
the person?
oversees?
Keeps the track of the hours and the volunteer hours are put as far as for the
I-
park?
The city manager.
Who?
The city manager?
Okay.
Previously.
I've been asked that before several times.
Yeah, previously. I did not actually oversee that.
Got a timesheet that says how many hours he
No,
puts?
no, I will tell you what I did oversee was just simply communicating with that person on the needs in the park and making sure that those needs were being met. You know, when we saw an extra need of additional, garbage service, or we're having a homeless problem or whatever, those types of needs were communicated. But as far as actually overseeing the agreement and what that person is or is not accomplishing as far as like weekly hours,
I'm thinking in hours, in
yeah,
terms of,
not me.
that somebody is, right?
Well, it's no more, but I don't know. I again,
Not here to decide.
I did not oversee that position as far as the person to oversee them. So, yeah,
I'm not sure anybody did. I think they just said you're gonna do this work and get your rent at.
I can tell you this: now that we've had to take on that work, we're putting the 20 hours in. I mean,
At least.
it takes a long time to go through that park. It's huge. It's a giant park. So there's a lot of mowing that has to take place down there.
The alternative would be putting up a fence and a gate, keeping people out that way.
Wayne?
I just had a question. The prior position of caretaker, they were basically just eyes and ears. They weren't security.
Correct.
I was out there after dark. He came out to see what I was
Yeah,
doing.
he's,
It's just eyes and ears, but they're not.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
Floor.
put a motion on the floor to recommend to staff to.
Mr. Taylor has a motion.
You never got a second.
Never got a
Oh,
second.
I didn't, did you finish it?
No, I got sidetracked.
What was his motion, Taylor?
Oh, okay,
I'm
so,
sorry.
never mind.
So-
Apparently it
Go-
withered on the vine.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to put a motion on the floor to recommend to staff to determine feasibility, or to present feasibility and cost and opportunity to reestablish the caretaker at Keizer Rapids Park.
Second.
We have a motion with a second to get
Looking to figure out how we get it back.
see if we can get it back and whether it's cost effective or not. That about it?
Well, we have to look at the security effectiveness too.
Well, and I think the nuances of how that position functions can be drawn out. I think if we get to the point where that's actually going to happen again, I mean, let the experts deal with that in terms of, Robert and Bill and everything, establishing the framework there.
The ideal, as far as security, the ideal situation is if the police would go down there
so-
once a night. But,
Okay.
and I was told that with the added staff, that they would have a presence down there, but
So, real quick, there's kind of a problem with that motion. So you guys
Recommend-
recommend to council,
Yeah.
not to staff.
Council.
So,
So I'll revise to recommend to council rather than staff.
We advise
So
council, not staff.
This motion, recommend that council look into the feasibility, cost, and opportunity to reinstate caretaker, or is it to direct staff to do that?
no,
We
I
don't
think to
direct
get
staff.
it back, you're gonna have to have council direct the city manager.
Right?
Yeah.
So you want council to direct staff?
Yeah, I think so. With the intention to come back here and we can have a discussion about it at the Parks Board and see what it really looks like and do kind of the work here, I think,
I'll go ahead and talk to Chris.
to make the final recommendation. I don't really know, but.
Can we
Yes, Donna.
add something more to that, something about our concerns for the security and et cetera was the reason we're pulling him back, not for outstanding maintenance, and can we make note of that in the motion?
So does the motion you have, I think pretty much takes care of that because you're talking about the previous position, right? Whatever that was.
Well, the previous decision included maintenance,
Well, yes.
which we're not looking at now.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I'd like to see overall with the feasibility. So, okay, my intention in my motion was basically to get it back to what it was before.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And they fixed it.
Right.
And it
So
wasn't broke.
I am seeing a value-added benefit of bringing the position back as it was, because I can guarantee you, they were putting in more than 20 hours a week. If not cumulatively over the month, they were putting in more than their time. So it's more of bringing it back to the status quo of what it was before. Do you agree with that, Jim? Okay.
Any other discussion?
I don't know if it'll fly, but
Well, I mean, if anything, Robert brings back to the Parks Board after, if the council agrees and says, okay, staff, you need to put this together and find out what it would cost to get
well,
this
then it's a
back.
done deal.
And then Robert brings it back and says, hey, here's everything. We have
We have to look
then
at it.
then we have a recommendation possibly to move it forward. Is that kind of the process you're looking at? Is that,
Or you may not even have to do that. I mean, once council gets the report,
okay,
then it may just bypass the Parks Board.
okay.
I'd like to see the report.
You know, again,
whether
it was a
passes
city
or not.
manager policy decision.
We're just
And
gonna
I say policy in a loose sense, because that's council's job, but there wasn't any kickback at the time from council. But I think to reinstate it, you would have to have council direct staff to do that.
That's what the motion has.
Right. That's the reason I said it should go to council, not staff.
Right, and
Staff
that's where
would
we're
do the
at.
work to tell council.
Council will direct
Well,
staff.
Okay, so we're going down the rabbit hole here.
Yes, sir.
In my brain, council, please tell staff to figure out what it's going to take to get this back. Staff comes back and said, here, council, this is what it's going to take to get it back. Council says, great. Either they send it back to us for more work or they move forward. That's, I mean, is that, seems, my walnut's getting it, so.
All right. Any other discussion? So we have a motion on the floor to ask council to study whether or not we should bring back the position as it was, basically, right? That's not a quote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Making Donna,
Thanks, thank you.
Donna, yeah, just about come out her skin. So
All right.
I did look at the vacant positions for you, if you want me to talk about those.
Oh, did you
Yeah, that's one back.
fulfill the needs of the vacant position? Okay, we're going to do Parks report. So Mr. Lawyer's sitting in for the vacant position.
So, Meadows is, well, we all saw Meadows when we went and did the parks tour last month, so not a ton to report on that. Looks great, still getting a ton of kids in there every night. Loving having the new paths out there and the outhouse and everything. Did we get I didn't see the dog duty thing. Is that up yet?
No, no,
Okay.
I didn't give a timeline with that. That's something I figured we'd add like over the next year, but I mean, I don't have it on hand. I'd have to order it and all that. So
Just asking a question.
just answering a question.
Clear Lake is just woods over by the school. Pretty basic. And then I'll wait and update on mine.
Donna?
Nothing's changed in either of my locations.
They're still there,
Everything's just like they were last time.
still located in the same place.
Same place.
All right.
A question for Robert
Yes.
on, what is it? North Ridge Park. There's that pie wedge that is not owned by the city. Has anybody approached or even thought about buying that last little piece? So if we wanted to do anything, we could?
Not to my knowledge.
Is it for sale?
I have no idea.
It'd probably be pretty cheap.
No.
Well, we can't go from one end to the other without it.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Clint,
Yes.
your report on Keizer Little League and Mike Witham Park.
With them.
Mike
With
Witham Park, we were
With them.
there for
Witham?
With them.
our parks tour, and I'm always amazed at that park, how well it does. They grow a lot of food there. I'm amazed at how much food they do. And when we were looking at the tomatoes and stuff, somebody does a good job of, it was just huge, and you didn't see rot in the stuff. Somebody really takes care of all those different individual areas So I've always been impressed with that. That was a great job to do, and I hope it keeps doing what it is right now as they go forward. So that's a good area. Keizer Little League, we just finished the end of our season. Most of you may not know, not only do we do Little League, but in the fall, we do NAPTA, which is a big softball organization for girls who want to go to college and get scholarships and all kinds of stuff. Great program. They love our complex, so they use every field on Saturday and Sunday. You'd be surprised the concessions we do just for those events for 2 days. I was so tired. It was 12 hours Saturday and 12 hours Sunday. They start at 7 o'clock in the morning and get done right at dark at 7. And pretty impressive. And they've kept the fields up, immaculate out there. Everything's green. We didn't get rained out like other places did because they play up at Newburgh and a couple other places. But they use our facility almost every field that they can get on. So everything had worked good. We ended that season Sunday and went really well.
Clint,
Yes.
on this Saturday, Sunday, does that require like extra maintenance or anything like that?
Well, everybody that uses the facility has to pay that fee of, what is it, $35? The only thing that's more is the restrooms take an enormous amount. You would not believe, we have great big rolls of toilet paper like this.
It's girls.
I know, but we go through 15 of those a day there, okay? Because this group will not use the porta potties for some reason like Little League does. They all go up to the main deal, and I'm telling you, it just, they're constantly coming, we're out. You just wouldn't believe, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't have the permanent bathrooms, because they get used terribly. It's just unbelievable.
Wonderfully.
I know. So, but yes, you're right. Saturday and Sunday, and it works out really good.
$35 per team?
Per slot.
Per
Per
slot,
slot. So for every game that goes on, it's 35. That doesn't cover our cost.
Right.
Because I figured years ago, if you amortize the wear and tear on the fences, the seating you got to do, the water, I mean, just everything you do, it runs to about $69 a game out there, and we're only charging 35. But the mayor has put a task force together, and that group will probably be meeting what to do to help facilitate what's going on at the Little League field, because it has become big business. The only time we're slack is in August, and even in August, one of the things that bothers me, in August, we're pretty full too, because everybody comes to this facility to use just as a walk-in. We don't charge for that. So there's a place we lose a lot of money. And somehow that will probably come up in this task force deal. But they haven't got any place else to go, so this ASA, which is not part of our deal, all those people come there to practice. And even in August, it's full when there's no actual games going on.
If they have an organized practice, they have to pay that.
No, they don't.
Well, they should.
The way the contract's written, especially on Sunday.
Always used to.
Yeah, and so that probably will be a subject that will come up. Yeah. The wear and tear is huge, and the thing I'm not able to do myself out there is we don't generate enough cash to pay for the fencing. Everything else we can get donated. It's amazing. The seed we get donated, fertilizer we get donated. It just goes on and on, but we can't overcome what it takes to replace all those fences. We just spent in January $26,000 to do the 2 top fields up by the parking lot. The senior field is probably going to cost us $50,000 to $60,000 to do, because it's the one that's got the lights on it. It's like 4 fields. The rest of them are pretty good, so we're down to basically taken a couple of the fields and literally killing all the grass and reseeding everything and getting it so it looks nice. And then the only other thing we got left is just replacing the fences on some of these fields. But of that study that Rich Duncan did, it was going to cost 1.5 million. I would say we're probably 75% through that, 65% maybe, 65%, because the fence is the only thing that I can't overcome on donations. And by the way, the Little League just had brand-new roofs put on, the 2 buildings out there. So, yeah, we're constantly doing maintenance out there. The roofs needed really bad to be replaced.
Well, they were both leaking, weren't they?
Not necessarily they were leaking, but,
field house
but what was happening, all the tile was coming off and the second layer was picking it up.
Matt?
So I can't remember, Chalmers Jones, right outside here, looks great, gazebo's awesome, still getting quite a bit of use when it's dry. Bob Newton, unfortunately, didn't have much of a chance to get out there, went by there in September and just haven't gone out yet this month, but, you know, mowing, staying up, just, it's one of the nice parks we got in the middle of town, so.
Thank you, Matt. Staff report.
Sarah,
Actually,
do you
I have
wanna go
something
ahead?
to add.
What?
I have something to add.
Okay.
If I can get it. So I gave you guys handouts of the park exercise stations, and so this was something that was talked about, I want to say 2 meetings ago.
2 months ago.
2 months ago, it was a while back ago. But anyways, I actually posted a question on Facebook, and I surprisingly got a huge response. I was not expecting a response at all. And so I just wanted to share some of the comments that I received on this topic, and just really want to keep that conversation going, because it seems like it's something that could potentially be used by folks here in the park. And some people did raise really good questions about like maintenance and the wear and tear of such things. I also kind of looked at what it would cost to buy stuff like that, and it's about like $6,000 on the expensive end. And it's just for, you know, allow people a place to exercise in the mornings or whenever at a park. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys, so for you to have. And it's,
This part of it?
yeah, so these are the Facebook responses that I received, and then the other one's just picture examples of what an exercise station could potentially look like and the cost, plus shipping and handling. And of course, overhead and staffing and all that other good stuff.
Tyra, were you looking at a specific park?
I don't know. It was a conversation that was brought up by someone who was interested in it. I think we mentioned possibly Keizer Rapids Park as a place to have it.
Walkway.
But I don't know. I mean, that would be a conversation worth having. Yes.
So Jeff, I believe was the guy's name who
Jeff
came
Davis.
to us, and he's been in contact with me. We've actually set up a meeting for he and I to sit down and kind of have a discussion on this next week.
Okay.
And so this is great information. I'll definitely bring this to the meeting.
Yeah, more than
I
anything
have-
was just to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
And just as a reference.
I have a lot of questions and some concerns as far as the maintenance goes, the upkeep, as well as the fall protection needs there, because I don't think that's a cost that we've incorporated in here just yet. But and then location, you know, once if this gets going and gets some speed, then obviously we can really start talking about the locations. Something I did mention in that meeting, Wayne, just because I don't think you were at that meeting, were you? Do you remember that conversation? I don't think you were there. We are having some hard surface trails repaved as we speak. Those projects have begun. And so I just mentioned that it'd be good of us to try to put these along those areas so we're not having to go out and build new trails, because the cost of that is just astronomical compared to what we're trying to accomplish here. So I wouldn't want to, you know, add too much more cost to where this wouldn't be a possibility. So
Dylan?
We talked a couple years ago maybe about, I think it was like a SWIFT, was that what it was called? I'll have to look it up again. But there was a grant process for HEAL. Okay. Heal that was funding for like outdoor activities and stuff like that, that we looked into this to be a possible use of that kind of money. So
This
that
looks
would be
like perfect for that.
And it also, yeah, and from the comments, there was someone else who put something about, I think it was in Woodburn, they received a grant from Keizer Permanente. So there's, that's a HEAL grant. Okay, perfect. So there's like grant opportunities and stuff like that. I mean, writing grants is a lot of work, but it's still funding that's out there.
So, Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. So it says here that the cost on this is $5,995 plus shipping. Is that for the two of these or just the one?
It would just be for one of the units. So those are examples of what they could look like.
I have a real question on why we can't do this ourselves.
We
as people
probably
in the
could.
community. $5,995 to build that? You can go get the lumber and stuff somewhere else and just.
We have trees.
Yeah, it's just crazy, that type of a cost plus the shipping, and it probably doesn't include the concrete.
I'm not sure that's concrete. Looks like it might be
It
sand.
looks like sand. Yeah, so yeah, that was on the expensive end, what
Yeah.
it could cost.
Expensive end.
So-
I would think you could go to somebody like Collier, or you could go to somebody like Randy Miller or somebody. These guys are talented people, they might be able to do
Part-
this for less than $1,000.
Part of the problem, if I will, part of the problem we might be up against is safety concerns when they're home built.
And
So
liability
you
issues.
need to get like engineers right off saying that this is designed.
But the problem is we build everything in this community. We built the amphitheater with
Well,
volunteers.
I'm ju-
We built the toy with volunteers.
No, we
But
didn't.
but the toy was
Well, the equipment
designed
was,
by
that's right.
engineers, and it's.
We do all the stuff at
It's
the Little League
professional.
with volunteers.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just.
Robert, this
saying.
is so simple.
I understand.
Not only
Guys,
that,
I'm not trying to
not only
say
that-
we can't do this.
But if
think
you're
I
just,
think an Eagle Scout could build this stuff.
Sure.
Easily.
well,
I'm just-
not,
from the
not
safety
only
concern, we have
that,
to go
but
about
when
it
we
the
build
correct way.
stuff, we over-engineer it compared to the stuff that you buy here.
But remember, these pictures are just an example of what could be.
And they also have like,
not
there's
a
also
we are
like
gonna
metal
do this.
ones and stuff like that. So I would just be really interested in hearing what you and Jeff have to say and what comes out of that meeting. Because yeah, I think it's a great idea. Oh, I just said that.
Did you want a copy of that?
this is more complicated doing crunches, but this is real.
Okay, you want to try staff report again?
Let's do this. So part of my staff report was to let you guys know that I had that meeting, but I already did that, so we're done there. Meadows Park, I have an update for you guys up there. So you were talking about Meadows Park earlier. The contractor has begun prepping for widening the asphalt pathway from the toy out to River Road. So that the dig out is done and the rock is in place and compacted, so it's prepped, ready to pave. They also just moved over to Country Glen Park today, and they were working over there on that one, and they're just going to be kind of working their way through the city, hitting various areas that we've asked them to go do. Also, we had our staff did some dirt leveling at Meadows. That's all complete, and I had it hydro seeded 2 weeks ago, so that grass seed is now just beginning to grow just in time for our October rain to show up. So that's good. So hopefully here in about a week or so, Meadows will be pretty much wrapped up. We're getting close, so I'm excited to see that project behind us. Got a lot of great feedback on that park last night at our Public Works open house. I had pictures up, and I heard a lot of kids pointing and screaming, and oh, I've been there. So that was neat to see. Over at Claggett Creek Park, we also had our contractor go in there and remove the old sports court. It's gonzo, and the forms are poured for the new court. And we're just waiting on some good weather so they can get in there and get the concrete poured for the new full-size basketball court that we're putting in. So we've basically doubled the footprint of what was there, and we're excited to have a regular full-size court. So yes, Matt.
Is a path planned to go there
Yes, we have a path that is going to be going from the parking lot over to the
from Dearborn?
from Dearborn. Yes, yep. And then hopefully, depending on how the weather goes, that contractor can move from that site up to Northview and get that one knocked out. But that one's going to be very much weather dependent, as we'll see how October treats us here. So,
What kind of surface is it going to be? Like
Concrete.
asphalt curve or concrete surface painted with the smooth stuff, or is it going to be pretty much just concrete?
smooth.
Well, because they have that sort of,
Gritty.
yeah, you know, that
It's going to be pretty
material.
much painted concrete.
Okay.
Yeah. Bob Newton Park. We also had a contractor start today to do the resurfacing there. So
I knew that's why I didn't tell you.
that's thanks. Yeah. Yeah, because you knew he was there. So they're working on that, kind of cleaning the surface of it, stripping some of the old gunk off, and then they're going to be sealing that and putting a 3-layer skim coat over the top. It'll be green with white pickleball lines and blue tennis lines. So it'll be a shared multi-use court, and then I'll be looking into getting some portable pickleball nets out there, and we'll see how it goes and just continue to get feedback from the neighborhood. And if there's a permanent direction we want to take that court down the road, we can talk about that. And if what we've designed works well for everybody, then we'll just keep it the way it is.
How do those portable pickleball nets work? Do they
There's
secured on site, or do they have to call to borrow them?
what was that last part?
Do they call to borrow them from
Call to
staff?
borrow. I
How
don't
does
like
it
the
work?
call to borrow idea because I think that would.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. Our hopes would be that we could pretty much just leave them in the park and hopefully they don't go anywhere and disappear. But
I hope that works too.
yeah, that's probably a high hope. I don't know.
It'll work for one.
We didn't want to go the whole permanent pickleball route. And so when you're not going permanent, you're not drilling holes and concreting permanent posts in the way of tennis. Also in the way of the basketball that's there. We're trying to get as many uses out of it as possible. One option is we could chain them to the chain link fence and issue keys to those particular locks and have a sign-up sheet to who has a key. Again, you're putting your trust in people who have come into the city and said, I will not lose this key and I will not make copies of it and hand it out to everybody in the neighborhood. So I don't know. There's a lot of options there. We can kind of work through those as we see fit. But
How much of a risk are we talking? Like $500 per net?
oh, like $250 each. Yeah, not crazy high, but hey, it's money. So
You gotta replace 10 of them a year, it's expensive.
So are we getting lots of good before and after shots, like photos and stuff,
photos.
of any of the work that's
Yes,
being done?
I have lots.
Photos.
Did you want to say something?
Cool.
Yes, sir.
I just think it's cool. I mean, it'd be really good to, at some point to see sort of the before and after, first part of the year when all of this first got going to where we're at now. I think
Yeah,
we just
for
kinda-
sure. We did have a cougar sighting down at Keizer Rapids 2 weeks ago. Don't know if everybody heard about that. I think you probably did, but it has not been seen again since.
It was Alvarez's
seen
goat.
no,
They
I think it might have been after Alvarez's goats, because it was not too far from where his
Oh, a
goats are.
cougar?
The cougar.
Huh?
You're talking about the cougar?
Yeah.
Yeah, cougar. Keizer Rapids. It was seen very, very early in the morning by a guy jogging, and it was near the river, and cougars travel the river often. I was in contact with ODF&W quite fast, and we got the signs posted within a couple hours, and so we, pretty much just posted the entire park because you don't know where it's going to go or where it's going to end up. But we've talked to a lot of people down there, and nobody's called us, so as far as we know, it hasn't been back in the area. But
Are there any deer around down there?
Not much.
Yeah.
There's deer around the cougars,
There's
not
some.
there.
I mean,
If there's deer around the cougars, not there.
yeah.
They don't stay in a shooting gallery.
So, yeah.
Lot.
Now, my wife had one jump out in front of her at Minnow Brown. It jumped out 6 feet in front of her.
Deer?
Cougar.
Probably
Yeah.
the same one.
ODFW informed me that Minto has monthly, if not weekly, sightings.
Yeah, but
There's-
when they jump out of the brush 6 feet in front of you, it tends
Yeah,
to
no, that's makes
get your
anybody
attention.
uncomfortable.
She used to love it down there, but she's never been back.
We only have like 6,400 in the state right now, according to them. So,
We've all had them around us, I'm sure, if we've spent any time in the woods.
We have rabbits.
that's all I got.
I have a question.
Yes, Donna?
Yes.
How did the farmer ever get anything planted down at Keizer Rapids?
Not yet. He's been waiting on rain. We did have a rain that showed up for a short period of time. Now we're looking at 2 weeks of no rain, so not
Okay.
sure exactly where we're at with that, but the field
That's
is
Bob,
prepped
right?
and ready to go.
Bob?
Zelensky.
Bob Zelinski.
Yeah,
Looks,
Okay.
looks nice out there.
it does. It looks very good.
Really nice.
It's amazing what some heavy ag equipment can do to a lumpy, bumpy field. Looks very good.
And how are the new bathrooms coming along?
New bathrooms are slowly coming along, but they are making progress. I don't really have a update for you on that as to a date that's planning on being open other than just still sometime this winter.
No roadblocks, though.
No, no major roadblocks. It's moving along.
Any other questions for Robert?
I think Wayne had.
Not a question, it's more of a general question, but as far as the enhancement list for the parks, is there a process of submitting an enhancement? To some idea of, or method to add a project to the enhancement list?
Talking about a new project?
New project, yes, or an enhancement to an existing park? Is there a method to do that?
Are you referring to like adding something into the park's master plan?
Yes, or adding it to the priority list of enhancements?
There's already stuff on the master plan.
If it's in the
They're
master
waiting.
plan, council doesn't have to see it. That's a staff thing, isn't it?
Yeah. What are we thinking here? I'm just curious.
Well, at Country Glen, the soccer goalposts are getting weathered, and they were not very durable to start with. So a potential enhancement would be to make or purchase better goalpost with wheels on them, maybe out of aluminum instead of the
Oh, like a permanent.
semi-permanent.
Soccer
So they
goal.
can be moved, because it's a multi-use field.
So that wouldn't need to go through the master plan process because it's not a permanent structure or anything like that. I mean, you're talking about
Maintenance, the enhancement.
changing the style of a soccer goal.
But there would be some cost involved,
Are you asking the city to pay for that?
possibly, but
Okay.
don't know that yet.
So that would need to be recognized as a need and then get worked into our budget at some point.
The goalposts it's been 2 seasons so far, and they've weathered, but they're still durable. They're still out there.
Mhm.
They could make it another season, but eventually they need to be replaced. Hopefully with something more substantial than what we currently have.
Okay.
So put it into the budget plan or get it.
Yeah,
But could you just
The-
do a project proposal?
well, there's a lot of different ways you could go about it, but for one, just recognizing the need. So is there a need for those items to be purchased? I think it looked like there was probably a need, and I'm not trying to say there's not a need. I just want to make sure that before we go spending money on something like that there is truly a need. And then, where does that fall in place with some of these projects? For instance, trying to think of a good one that somebody's come to. Oftentimes people will donate to the city, but the city, we kind of take the mindset of, thank you for your donation, we really appreciate it, but we're also not obligated to maintain what it is you've donated. If it gets ruined, we may not replace it. Now, if it was something that was a building structure or something more significant like that, it's probably a little bit different story. But, I think that's probably something that could totally be done. I don't know that it would be done next year. Obviously, it's probably not going to get done this year because it's not something we've even talked about in this year's budget. But might also be an opportunity for matching grant or something along those lines that would be pretty good.
Because those nets are about $1,500 to $2,500 a piece, I think, are they? Did you look into them at all?
Well, the ones that are there are very inexpensive.
No, I'm talking about the metal rolly ones.
The metal aluminum with wheels would be probably 1,500 at least
Per goal.
per set. Per set.
Per set.
Yes.
So you found one that's a good price.
Well, I haven't priced them, but
Oh,
not recently, but I have created 3 soccer fields in my day, so. Okay, so it's just a general question of how to do that, how to get it started for an enhancement idea.
okay.
Any other questions for Robert? Roland, it's your turn.
Okay, what do we got? First of all, I want to thank Clint for that toilet paper visual he gave me. I do want to compliment our Public Works Department, Fire Department, and Police Department for the wonderful Public Works open house. For those of you that didn't attend, it was probably one of the best ones in a long time. And a lot of kids, a lot of people, and a lot of cool stuff, you know. I like those because I get to get my bag full of, you saw me, filling it up with goodies for the young kids over at Kennedy. Anyway, and thanks a lot for that. Also, I want to run this by you real quick. Saturday, the mayor and Mayor Clark and I attended the Beacons Banquet and Fundraiser, which is something that's a new concept. Mike McGann's heading it from our area, and all the Salem schools eventually will be able to, according to our funding, and if we get there, any athlete that plays, that wants to play a sport will be able to play. This fund will cover it. And it's a really great program because I tell you what, I mean, back when I played, it was like $20 and we couldn't afford my senior year. So I think it's a good way as a mentor to help kids focus on something. As we know, sports, as well as other activities, choir, act, drama, whatever, help kids focus on something else and gives them, you know, less time to be doing something else. So that's a great program. As we know, back to the our last council meeting was very exciting, I think, and it's been on the news. And I want to clarify one thing about that. Somebody said to me, because I got some reaction, most of it was positive, by the way, that we shouldn't tell voters how to vote. We're not telling voters how to vote. The council, as a body, we made a decision. We took a stand against Measure 105. That's what we said. And for those of you who don't know what Measure 105 is, it's kind of personal to me because the actual guy that brought it up is a good friend of mine, and the actual guy that started the suit is a friend of mine that I grew up with. So basically, it's not taking, and they call it sanctuary. It's not providing sanctuary for anybody. It's not prohibiting federal people from doing federal, existing law. Basically, it was trying to solve the problem of profiling, and I happen to be a person that was profiled myself. We're trying to stop that from happening for citizens to get stopped and asked if they had their papers, if they were citizens. And so our community, Latino community, we've been working hard to build bridges with our wonderful police department. By the way, our Chief Teague is on board because he understands the relationship and the public safety where we want to be. And we've been building a lot, and I think it was not good for our community, and we are not telling people how to vote. People vote how they want. We as a body have made a decision to take a stand against 105. We do not, so those of you who are saying that this council, that we are telling people how to vote, we're not. Everybody vote their conscience, and that's the American way. We just, as a community, leaders, elected officials, are against it because we feel it's not good for our community. Enough of that. So, other than that, pretty much everything else, but I want to get that clear and make my compliment to our parks, public works, and all those. So, with that said, thank you very much for all your work. That's it for me.
We have a new heading, Matt's business.
Somebody's got jokes. It's hilarious though, because I have stuff.
No.
I'm gonna
Backfired terribly.
and I'm gonna drag this on for Dylan. So the first thing is actually something that came up recently. I was contacted by a RC club in response to the new parks rules about no RC cars and stuff in the parks. Remote control cars.
Okay, thank you.
Did we have rules against that? New rules against RC cars?
No, it's existing rules that we reinforced.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize new rules had been made, but that's.
No, it's the same rule, but
Okay.
it was just sort of reinforced. Anyways, so this organization came forward and said, okay, well, we see you. However, this is what we've been doing out at Keizer Rapids. And so They are in the process right now of putting together a request sort of for an exception to the rule to do as an organization some kind of RC stuff, probably out towards the quarry at Keizer Rapids. So not a lot to discuss on that, but they are wanting to get organized. Apparently there's a lot of people that do this already out at Keizer Rapids, and it's kind of one of those things that you know, they have the organizational expertise and all that kind of stuff, and really it would be a very minimal impact, but they're going to bring some stuff forward.
If I can ask a question, is this a one-time event?
No, so ongoing. So similar to like kind of like how the disc golf folks sort of.
I know, but that's master plan.
Okay.
That isn't in the master.
I'm not saying that, hey, let's do this right now. I'm just saying there was a conversation. So I don't think that the uses out there are specified. I mean, there's opportunities for multi-use areas, right? So.
Yeah, but you're talking down by the river.
Right. Out towards the quarry area where nobody goes anyways.
The only thing that was master planned down there was a BMX.
Correct.
Nothing to do with those. I think it's problematic. I don't have a problem with it at all.
Well,
I don't have the
but
Why do you see it having to be in the master plan?
well, because when we did the park, the only thing down by the river or in that back area back there, where the dips and all that, was a BMX thing. And that got started, and then it kind of went away, and the group went away, never got done. But if you're going to build something, even a track, or you'd have to change the master
I don't think
plan.
they're building anything. I think they're just utilizing the park to use their cars.
Right.
Similar as you would if you're on a bicycle or walking or jogging or
In the path.
just using some portion of the
And
park
actually,
for-
as I was talking to him, if there are areas for path improvements, they would look to do path improvements.
So it could be
Not
a
to ADA
win-win.
accessibility, but it would be path improvements and stuff like that, which would be compatible potentially with BMX and other sort of activities as well.
Would this be something that Bill would have to okay?
I believe he has okayed an event down there one time regarding that, but are they looking for like change the park rules to say it'd be allowed at Keizer Rapids or in a portion of
In a
Keizer
designated
Rapids?
area is what they're
Designated
looking
area.
at, yeah. And that's really all it is that, you know, hey, you know, we've been doing this out here, it doesn't.
It's too bad they weren't here a couple months ago, huh?
I know.
When we were
but-
talking about flying RC cars.
Yeah. So again, it's so high level right now. I mean, I couldn't even begin to pretend to tell you what their thought process is on it. It was something that brought up. My name got thrown in the mix somewhere in the conversation, and I promised them I'd bring it to the board. Got 2 events coming up with park stuff / Clear Creek Watershed Council at the end of this month on October 27th. We're going to be down at Country Glen Park. I'm working with both middle schools and the high school to do the wood chip removal at Country Glen Park. We're going to pull all the old wood chips out, and then the city is going to load up the stuff from the big toy and then blow it in, so it'll be fresh material down there.
You're taking down Debbie's Hill?
We're gonna start depleting Lockhart Mountain. Yes. You know, fulfilling the goal of trying to reuse some of that material, which is great. Going to be doing some work around the trees. Going to be pressure washing, hopefully this week, the picnic area there and the play structure, so that the picnic area can be repainted because there's lots of symbols on it. And then first Saturday in November, Clear Creek Watershed Council and Rotary are going to be planting some more trees out at the Arboretum. Only about 8 or 9 of them, so that should be about a pretty quick project. I brought up the dog park thing earlier. I guess there's a lot of concern about people coming in, using the dog park, and the dogs are using the dog park, but then the users aren't picking up after their dogs that use the dog park. And so there's been, I'm sorry?
You should mail it to them.
So there's been a lot of general concern about that. You know, I suggested that they come out and have a conversation with us, and nobody did. So I told them I'd bring it up, and I did. And so hopefully we get that new caretaker thing reestablished, and it's not as much of an issue.
Can I chime in on that real quick?
Please.
The dog park, from time to time has issues, and it's a couple things. It's people aren't picking up after their dog, or their large dog is in the small dog park side, or their dog's aggressive towards other dogs, or I mean, just constantly. I get probably
Dog stuff.
2 or 3 dog park calls a month, and don't get me wrong, they're all dandy, they're all important to everybody, but self-policing inside the dog park is the only thing that really works.
Right.
Okay, so when people see something happen that shouldn't happen, they need to call each other out. And if they're not willing to do that, then they can't expect it to get better. And when people do self-police in the dog park, it generally keeps things flowing nicely. But it's kind of like, I think too many people are afraid to say anything, but at the same time, they're not afraid to call me and tell me about it. But then I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? This incident's long gone, or I'm not going to go down there and, search through 6-inch tall grass for, dog
DNA.
things left behind.
As dog parks go, I think on a whole.
It's
Park
nice.
People does a pretty good job of cleaning it up. You've got a few people that won't.
Apparently, it got real bad down there recently. I got a phone call on it today, and I think that's exactly what Matt's referring to. And I don't know
By the
what's
way-
changed. It's 9 years old now, so.
By the way, we just got done, I had 2 kids go help me. We had 2 trailer loads full of dirt just to fill the holes in the
Wow.
dog park. I could not believe how many holes were there, and some of them were like that deep, that wide.
Dogs dig.
Dogs do.
Yeah,
And, well,
that's the other.
They go after the
Feel nice.
gophers.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Gophers.
Yeah, the gophers that are in there, and so they tear all that up, and hopefully this fall we can roll that. I'm gonna bring my roller back, maybe we can roll that, make it a little smoother
When it's
out
mushy.
there.
Well, we just need to get the dogs out there smoking cigarettes, and then they won't be. I'm just kidding. Sorry. There you go, Jim. So the last thing I want to bring up, Robert, what's the history of the Rickman Garden? What's the namesake there? What's that about? Do you know? I mean, is it because
Rickman
it's on
Road.
Rickman?
What?
The Rickman Garden.
That's the road it's on.
Ask them.
It's on
So-
Rickman Road.
So that's it, right?
They would know the full
Yep, they would know more about Rickman
What?
Gardens than
Well,
anyone.
no. The reason I ask is because of the Moors specifically, and the work they've done. And I'd like us to take into consideration the possibility of maybe appropriately naming it for the caretakers that have done so great. And just I'd like us to explore that maybe at the next meeting and find out what that would take. But they've put so much time and effort into it and brought it up to just amazing standards with getting the fence up and getting the greenhouse and everything else. I mean, it's rewarding people for their very hard-earned time and volunteer effort.
Great
So
idea. I don't think we have a precedent for community gardens. So,
Park,
huh?
isn't it a park?
It is a park.
Yeah.
It's a section of the park.
Do you want to put that on the agenda for us? Thank you, Debbie. You're efficient as usual.
I will send you all, watch for the email, I will send you all the resolutions about parks naming.
The naming, right.
I'm not sure if this will fall under that category, but it will at least give you some background.
Thank you, Debbie.
Anything else, Matt? Well, it's your slot.
Wayne and I went to the volunteer coordinating committee last week and stuck our names back in the hat to stay on this dude. So I'm sorry. For me, anyways. You guys like Wayne, but I'm sorry.
Speaking of that, if I may,
Yes.
you all have, there's a couple of things left. You all have a little card on the dais there.
Yes.
Those are openings that we have. You have 2 openings still on the Parks Board at the end of December. Jim is not coming back, and Kat is gone. So his term is up, and he's not re-upping. So I need y'all
Shorter
to
meetings.
get the word out, talk to your friends, see if somebody wants to apply. They can do it online. If you want to, you could send me an email if you want the electronic version, the link to it, and I will send it back to you. You can send it to your friends. The other thing is this is in your packet. This is a Building Better Boards thing that the chamber is putting on. They did it last year. It had meal included. Keizer members of boards go free, get a free meal. And
Hey, I'm
and
in.
you listen to them tell you about how to have do better boards.
So
So if you want to sign up, this is a sign-up sheet. If you run out of room on the first page, there's another one on the second page.
So procedurally, is there anything that bans spouses from being on the same board?
I do not think so.
Since it's advisory, I don't.
Is this I think I might have gone to this a couple years ago
Yeah,
about
last year it was about this same time.
it's like they go over the Roberts.
No, the Roberts
Bit
rules,
last year, Matt.
that was what our city attorney does that, but this is not that.
Oh, this is a different thing.
This is
Okay.
different, yes.
Usually run by the chamber.
the same one that was the
Yeah.
one last year.
Yes, but it's a different program, but it is the same event.
Whose spouse wants to be on it?
Just asking the question. I'm doing research.
I was council liaison to the Bikeways Committee when my wife was on it. And when we'd get home, she'd tell me all the things that I did wrong.
That
Well,
works for
that's
me.
new. What's new about that?
Yeah, Matt.
That works for me.
Why did you say that? Why don't you just shut up?
That's a really good thing.
Good thing this isn't televised or saved on the internet for posterity.
Yeah,
It
but
is.
One last thing, this Thursday, candidates forum, come meet your potential new city councilors and hear from current city councilors and current mayor.
when is that?
Hosted by the Keizer Chamber of Commerce, I don't know, it's this Thursday.
Great.
Can't come.
That's on October 18th, isn't it?
18.
Doesn't it say, this is right, 10 something?
No, it says due by the 12th.
No, up on the other side. Turn it over, there,
Oh.
18.
yeah. All right, so if we don't have
Anything else besides passing the roster around? If there's no other business to be had, we're going to stand adjourned at
Good job.
7:15.